Who are you? Where are you from? How long have you been in China? And where are you currently?
Okay, I'm Becky Nelson and Shay Nelson. We are, what was the other parts of it? Sorry.
We are Justin and Nathalie Hewitt. We are from Oklahoma, United States. We moved to Beijing in July.
2019.
Yeah, 19. And we are currently in Thailand.
We're both from the States.
Yeah, we're both from the States, and we've been in Beijing, China for a year and a half or so? A little over a year and a half, maybe? Yeah.
And where are you currently?
Beijing. Or Shunyi, Beijing, so the suburb north of proper Beijing.
Okay. How did you react when you first heard about the virus?
Initially, it was, they're overreacting. But then things changed pretty quickly. And then we started wearing masks. And then we were locked inside for a really long time.
I was actually, because it was still Chinese New Year, I was just woken up and I looked at my phone and had a message from my mother-in-law that had said, "Oh, are you guys okay? There's this virus." And I was like, what? So I went and Googled it, and I was just like, oh, there's, and without really knowing much about it, I got a real quick blip about what it was, and I wrote her back. I'm like, oh, we'll be fine, blah blah blah. I was like, it is what it is. We're we're young, we're healthy, and really didn't think much of it. I think I got up before him and I mentioned it to him, and didn't really go anywhere from that until we started seeing that it was all over the place.
Yet, so it just kind of goes and then just keeps going.
My mom called and told us what the States found out before we did about how bad it was, and told us, and we told her she wears hand sanitizer on a normal day, too much hand sanitizer on a normal day. So we just blew her off, but then he got sick, and so that made it a little more real. And then everything in China was canceled, which also made it more real and a bigger bummer.
And you start seeing in all the WeChat posts and everything, people talking about it, and then you see that there's masks outside. You're like, oh well, I should probably be wearing my mask too. and then I would say that within the first, few days, there was just tons and tons of information that came in, and I think things got quiet around outside very fast.
I did not contract the coronavirus. I went to the hospital twice, the airport hospital there in Shunyi. I had a fever, so I had to go to the fever clinic. The people from our compound, community service director, but they did walk me over there and made sure that I got in. They did act as a translator best that they could, because they were not allowed into the fever clinic. It was a little scary not being able to communicate except for using Baidu on my phone to communicate with everyone there. But they took care of me. I did see a doctor. The first visit, they did a temperature check, of course, then said, yeah, you need to visit with the doctor, prepaid for everything. They didn't ask for insurance, so I didn't think to give it to them. So the first visit, they did blood work and a chest x-ray. And they sent me home with antibiotics. What else? Yeah, they sent me home with antibiotics and Tamiflu.
Not the virus.
Yeah, they're like, it's not the virus, yeah.
Not that mean.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're in the tropics and there's lots of pollen. Was it just that?
I think so.
Yeah, I think the first trip was just the Tamiflu and antibiotics. 3 days later, overall I felt better, but I was still having a hard time breathing, which made it even scarier. So I'm like, great, it is the virus. I'm gonna die right here. So I go back over there, of course I still have a fever, and I have more symptoms of the coronavirus. And I'm like, I'm gonna get isolated here. My phone was half dead. I didn't have a battery backup that day. I'm like, I'm just gonna get lost in the system. That day, it was a blood draw, and then they swabbed my throat twice and sent me home with an enormous box of medicine. It took both hands to carry it home. But it was antibiotics, steroids,
Oh gosh, I don't even remember everything.
several decongestants just to
Yeah.
get everything out.
2 antibiotics.
Yeah,
2 different antibiotics. Yeah.
quite a bit. But it cost, it was just under 1,000 RMB, so that's what, like $300?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that.
So, I mean, that's really good. I mean, because I can't even, in the States, without using insurance, I can't even visit a doctor for $300. I mean, much less a blood draw, lab work twice, and an x-ray. I mean, that would have been a nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I had a kind of a different reaction. I've lived other places in the world for extended periods of time, and it seems like there's always something that happens wherever you choose to live, right? Like when I was in the Middle East, it was the Arab Spring, and then is the Arab Spring going to spread, to all these different places in the GCC. So it's just kind of like you take it like a bad magic trick. Like you kind of see it happening, but you're just like, you really don't care that much until it's like in your face. Like I'm pretty, what's the word I'm looking for? Pretty numb to a lot of things these days. Yeah, I just don't care.
We had a trip that was planned too, and we didn't know, because we don't travel as much as some of the other people here, and we usually take maybe 1 or 2 vacations during our school year. And so we had stayed in China for the Chinese New Year last year. We'd seen all the temple fairs. It was a really great experience and everything, but that was for 2 weeks, and this is 3 weeks. And with everything that kind of shuts down, we were like, okay, it was
We hadn't traveled for Christmas either.
Yeah.
So.
hadn't traveled, and so we figured because everything shuts down. Last year I was going bonkers by the second week because I had nothing to do. So we were like, okay, we're gonna, not anything big. We're gonna go out of Shanghai to Japan on a cruise, and then come back. And oddly enough, we had planned to continue to do that even after everything went on.
The nonchalant decision pay off, because we were totally just about to be like, oh, we're going to go until they tell us we can't go.
Yeah.
And then they're like, we got a notification saying, yeah, this thing's not happening. And then like a couple weeks later,
Not even, it was a couple days later.
Yeah, in Japan, they're like, oh, cruise ships, like quarantined. It was like, well, shit. Good thing that.
Yeah. So that was really good that we didn't go on that. So.
How has your family reacted to the news of the virus?
Oh, back in the States?
Yes.
Or they're freaking out, especially now that they're getting more cases. So they've calmed down since it's been. I've lost track of time. Lost track of time. How long has it been? Like 8 weeks now? 7, 8,
About a year.
7 weeks? I don't know. At first they were freaking out. Now I think it's a whole different level of freaking out because now it's coming into the States and stuff.
So I was in the military, and like I said, I've been traveling around the world for a while. So I think my mom and my dad, my family just in general, have kind of adapted to the notion of like, if there's a problem, he'll let us know that there's a problem. I think especially over the last several years, they've gotten to kind of understand more that the news isn't really news, as it is just sensationalism at its finest. So I think that with the understanding of that's kind of what that is, and them having trust in my traveling over the years, I think that they're kind of the mentality of, let's just see what he says, and if something happens, fine. But I don't think that they, I guess my mom did message you, but really, she was just kind of, if anything, it was more of like this is happening in their neighborhoods.
I think it helps now that we're out of China, because they have that Western media perspective that the end of the world in China. They've calmed down quite a bit. I mean, it took us showing them videos of, there actually being groceries in the grocery store and places.
And him actually going to a fever clinic.
Yeah.
Like, there was no line wrapped around the block. There was no line at all.
Yeah, it's like I was in and out. There was the first visit, there were 2 other people there. They came in after I was there. The second time, there were more, but I don't believe that they were ever diagnosed with the coronavirus. I think that they probably would have contacted me considering I was in the clinic that day.
Oh yeah,
because they did call. That was the crazy thing. I've never had a doctor follow up like they did. And they told me, we're going to call you every day for 14 days. And they made sure that I went home and did my quarantine just in case. And then after a week or so, it became every other day. And it was just to make sure that I was
feeling better.
That I was feeling better, no new symptoms, and that no one else in the house had developed symptoms.
How are the kids feeling about everything that's going on?
They miss their friends. Well, they did. I don't know if they do now that we're in Thailand. They both prefer the online learning because they can do it on their own time and it doesn't take all day. And then Logan likes it because he can be at home with his family. Abby likes it because she's very independent, so she can decide when she does it, how long it takes her, and then when she's done, she can do what she wants. So.
And because they're mine, they can do it without pants, which is also a bonus.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Logan did not wear pants this time. He wore boxers, but yes. We packed all our bags, and I was like, Logan, you don't have pants on.
And see, a few days ago, we met up with the Swotex because they're renting a house currently. Well, for a few nights, they were. Shed a yard and everything, so the kids got to run around outside. There were bicycles. Charlie turned the sprinklers on, so they had a blast. And then next week, the 8 of us are sharing a house for a week, so the kids will have more time together.
And a pool because it's hot here.
And a pool. They can go outside and play. And it's going to make life a lot easier.
I can only imagine. How have you been keeping busy?
I do amazing entertaining myself. Others have problems with it. Others are busy a lot of the time, so they're learning to reutilize free space that has otherwise been filled the majority of the time.
I'm others, so you nailed it. I think that as a teacher, I'm so busy all the time, and that you just over the years you just lose some hobbies that you used to have time for, that unless you an active effort to expend that energy and to maintain that sort of connection to things that you loved before, it's really difficult, and a lot of things get kind of just swept under the rug at some point. And so I think the silver lining of this is that a lot of my, I'd say, more coping mechanisms of just watching Netflix and just binging Netflix or things like that got really boring after the first maybe 2 or 3 weeks. So it kind of forced me out of those silly new habits that I had into more meaningful ones, where I started playing guitar more and recording music, listening to podcasts. There was at one point where I was exercising. I need to get back to doing that because I fell off of that. That's been a roller coaster. But originally, at first I was like, oh, we need to stay healthy, so I'm going to work out every single day. And there was at one point where I had just started running, and if you know me, I don't really run unless something's chasing me. I'm not an athlete. I'm artsy-fartsy indoor kid, right? And so, I like to eat healthy, so I started running, and I got to a point where I was like, oh, I'm about 3 kilometers in this thing. I could stop and go home and be bored, or I could just keep running and finish this 5K. And I did, because it was less boring to be running than it was to be here doing big things. So that's positive, I think. I think we could put that, cash that in. But I think in that sense, just been keeping busy and kind of revisiting hobbies and things that we liked. He's teaching me how to build a computer. I didn't know how to do that.
I didn't know I could teach her to do that.
Yeah, it's been actually really cool. I've learned a lot in that sense.
Yeah, it's finding, like I said, I entertain myself pretty easily. I'm pretty classic, shiny. I can play with this stupid mouse for probably 2 hours just figuring it out.
He turned into a robot or something, because he's actually really good at stuff like that.
Yeah, like I can entertain myself. It was more. It was really trying to find a new dynamic as someone who's home a lot of the time and someone who's at work all the time, and then finding a new balance to your daily routine, which is completely changed. I think that was the real learning turning point of trying to figure out, okay, we kind of segregate the house now into sections where it's like, okay, now you have office work section and then there's like free time section. So it's you kind of redefine, at least that's what worked for us, house roles and times, and it's just the daily routine, trying to figure out what works and what doesn't.
It almost mimics our old routine, because I mean we do during the day when I'm online teaching, so if I will go over into the office and just say, oh, I love you, little things like that, but for the most part it kind of does, we still keep our space and do our own things throughout the day and then just cross over with that. I would definitely say for like a hot minute there, I became like a champion Oreo eater. And again, it's that roller coaster. You have to find that medium of like, oh, guess what? I'm not doing anything. I'm just gonna sit here and eat junk food all day and watch Netflix. That's fun for a couple days. And then you start going, wow, this is not okay. Like, you need to do something about this. And then you work out for a couple of days and you're just like, oh, you know what? I really like that Oreo routine I had was awesome. And so it's you just have the space to just do that. So I mean, we're like, maybe this is more about us as adults, but like like trying to like find that happy medium.
What has work been like for you?
Now that I'm into a routine, now that we've been doing it for a month, it's gotten a lot easier. I was surprised by how much work goes into being online with your kids. Even for one class, it almost feels like it takes more to work from home and work online than it does to teach 4 periods.
A lot of adjustment. I think everybody's doing the best that they can right now to navigate this new terrain. This is not something that anybody had planned for, and it's not something that we were entirely fully prepped for. So I mean, I think that from the school's perspective, they're trying to do what they can to help support teachers. But again, not everybody's here, everybody's around the world. And so that can be tricky. Being here in Beijing is also tricky because there is, like we just talked about, there's that level of kind of like boredom and what's the cabin fever aspect of it. And then having to, even though we had all of our materials and stuff here, which was something I was incredibly grateful for, because had I gone on that cruise, I wouldn't have known to bring anything with me. And so I would have been working off of either Shay's computer or a phone, and I wouldn't have had anything of what I needed to. And because I was home, and I'm the leader for my grade, I was able to pull and scan and do all the things that we had here and get some materials to people so that we had something to work with.
So there's definitely a adjustment period, especially having 2 kids that also needs to be online at same time, different times, not enough devices, poor internet connection.
Yeah, see that has been the most challenging part, is getting everyone online when they need to be online and having a reliable connection. I mean, it seems to be easier here, wouldn't you think?
I think today was better than, we've been here a week, and I think today was the best day. Everyone came down this morning with me. Logan went to class, and Abby sat down and did her work, and I was in class all at the same time, so that worked out. That's the first time in a week that we've gotten Logan in a live class.
I love my team. They're great. They've been very positive about this, and even at the low points where we've all just been like, I don't understand what's going on, this isn't hard, this isn't making sense, this isn't working, can't we do it this way? They've just been like, okay, you know what, this is what's happening, how are we going to take care of this? And as their leader, that's really great for me too, because it allows me to say, okay, what do you need? Let me go see if I can help that, bring it to other people, and if it's possible to make some of these changes. And so, I mean, on the whole, I wouldn't say it's been easy, because it hasn't. It's been very tricky and very difficult at many points. And I would say the first 2 weeks especially, I cried about every other day just trying to figure out what was going on, because I was so stressed. And I'm an emotional person, so I mean that's part of it. It's not just like I cried all the time. But I am an emotional person, and so like that's how I let my stress out. But it was definitely stressful. But I would say that we're going into week 5 next week. And like I said, I couldn't do this without my team. We found a stride. We found something that works. And we're working together very well, I think, to make that just level out.
Any final thoughts that you want to add about the coronavirus and everything?
I don't know. No. And it's different being here versus being there. You have a lot to say when you're stuck inside and seeing it every day.
Yeah, I mean, it's a completely different mindset now. It's like, there are 11 cases in Thailand.
Oh, you mean active cases?
11 active cases.
Active cases.
As of yesterday, the day before. I don't even know what day that was, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like a vacation here. There's, 2 hours in the morning that they have to do stuff.
Must be hard for you.
It's so hard. I mean, I can say I'm having the time of my life.
I think as a whole, I think the biggest parts that I've kind of taken away from this is that it, especially talking about the epidemic and as in terms of I have friends that were here during like SARS and stuff like that have experienced kind of the same response in a lot of ways, where it's more of like a damage control kind of mentality that you're kind of getting forced to acknowledge and deal with on a daily basis. But I think the biggest thing like that I've really seen kind of take away with is the social media instant connection that you have. While good information is great, the majority of it really is just poor information. And poor information, just because it has that sexier appeal, it has that fear or whatever, it spreads just like wildfire through whatever chat groups you have or news that you're tuning into or whatever. It really shows you just this inflammation of just bad information.
Like with it getting worse in Italy and Iran, and it was weird because before we left, and again, just to get out of the house, not because we're worried about getting sick, it felt like things were getting better. Like China had a really good handle on it, especially Beijing, and things were getting closer to being better. And then all of a sudden it like pops up everywhere else. And I'm like, that's gonna affect us. Because people, half of Beijing's still out of the country. And sure enough, now you're starting to see the numbers trickle up again because people coming in from Moscow and all these other places. And it's just, I can't fathom how quickly the numbers spiked. Like in China, it was one thing because at first they didn't know what was happening. So it's like, oh, I have a cold. And nobody is extra aware. And so it spreads really fast. The whole world knows now. So why is it I can't figure out why it's spreading so bad in so many places? You knew this was going on. Why weren't you more prepared?
It's been really eye-opening as far as what can you actually take in. What you're taking in, you might still be good, but you have to take this huge grain of salt with it, just because you never know at the end of the day. It could just be complete bogus. And it's just crap, more bad information. So I think that's the biggest thing. In the long term, I think it's great because I think it makes everybody kind of re-scrutinize, not necessarily what's happening with Corona, but hopefully that translates into other aspects of their life, which I think is, not just general health standards, but just information as a whole. I think a lot of people are too oblivious to understand where a lot of information comes from.
A bunch of music festivals are being canceled already, and the New Year celebrations here in Thailand, even though they only have 11 active cases, they've already and theirs aren't till April. They've already canceled all that. So it's just, I don't think I've ever lived, well, I was alive during SARS, but I don't feel like that. Either I was too young or
we were in high school.
Too narcissistic, or I don't know. But I've never lived through anything like this. So it's really weird and interesting how it is affecting literally the entire world now. In the States, they're not going to get paid. It's not going to be a law that happens like that, don't worry, stay home, you're going to get paid. they're not going to say you can't leave your compound. They can't, I mean, they just don't have the structure for all of that. And then, like in China, if you come down, if you are diagnosed positive, if you have the coronavirus, you don't have to pay. They can't even, they're cutting all of that in the States. So it's like, there's no way they're going to be like, oh, sure, you middle class person, we will pay that bill for you. No, they're going to rack up the price of the medicine that you need.
I've been really impressed with the resiliency of Chinese people around here. Even today, I was reading about how stores in the U.S. are already sold out of food and masks and hand sanitizer, and nothing has happened yet there in most of the places where this is happening. And which I get, like I'm not gonna lie, I had that impulse here. A colleague of mine was in Bali when this happened, and he's just like, oh, I heard they might run out of food, and I was like, oh right, we need to put this Y2K seller, sort of situation. And
we need a Y2K bag.
Yeah, like it was
the same exact situation.
But so we went to the store. I actually came back with a really crappy bounty from that too. So we got there, we realized that there was plenty of food. I think masks and hand sanitizer have been a little bit tricky, but there's like 1 billion people in this country, so I mean it.
But even then, you can still find them. They're harder to find and more elusive. You can still find these things.
So in that sense, I've been really impressed with how calm everybody has stayed, even though it's been really hard for a lot of people. And I'm sure a lot of people have family been affected by this. And I think that, they've stayed very, reasonably calm. And my kids the same way. Like, I'm just blown away with how resilient they've been. I love getting to talk to them. And even when the first day we had our face-to-face lessons, I was just like, our bell ringer was, what has this experience been like for you? And a lot of them were like, it's sad because I can't do this, I can't do that. But they all had a lot of positives that they had to say about, I get to spend more time with my mom now, or I get to, a lot of them were playing video games more. but you know what I mean? But even still, that's a form of resiliency that I have 10-year-olds, it's difficult.
This segment has been brought to you by the official beer of Thailand.
That looks good.
It is, it's great.
And I did pay for this, but if you're watching...
It's been really a wonderful experience, or not a wonderful experience, sorry, cut that out.